I knew it wasn't right for a long time, and I probably could have saved you heartache if I acknowledged that sooner.
Hello everyone, today we are going to be talking about Welcome to Plathville, Season 6, Episodes 1 and 2. I showed a little clip there of Ethan and Olivia because they are definitely, facing some major changes in this season, but we're actually going to start off with talking about Micah in Episode 1. In the last season, Micah had been living in California, but we find out here in Episode 1, he has made the move to southern Florida because he is in a new relationship. He said they were doing this long distance thing for a while, but he felt like there was a deeper connection between the two of them, and it was time to make the move to be closer to her. So he is living there in southern Florida in her home. And one of the things that they show us is that every day she gives him a list of chores to do around the house. So we see him doing chores and doing some cleaning. And for the most part, when he's talking during this part of the show, he looks really happy. But Micah does say his life is different in Florida. Everything he does is centered around his girlfriend. And he says that's good, but he does miss his friends from California. So he convinces his friend Will to come and visit him. And this is where we end up seeing there might be some issues between Micah and his new girlfriend. The producer ends up asking Will what he thinks about Micah's relationship.
But the first time I saw her was maybe not one of their best moments. They were having a little bit of a tiff where, they were going at it a little bit.
Will saying this doesn't mean it's a bad relationship. He may have just caught them in a bad moment. But it does feel like the producers or whoever edits this, I don't really know much about how these shows are made, but it feels like they are doing a little bit of foreshadowing because they also have Micah saying this.
It's interesting. We're definitely learning a lot about each other. I didn't realize, apparently I'm such an uncleanly person.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the grossest thing that's happened so far?
From my perspective, they're a young couple. This may work, this may not work, who knows? But there's no reason to pressure or rush them into anything serious. I think these kids felt that when they were growing up. They weren't supposed to date around. They were supposed to be courting. They were supposed to have the goal of getting married. So it's completely okay if this relationship doesn't work, or if it does, that's great too. I will tell you, if you haven't watched the episode yet, she is not on camera. Micah says that she is shy. It seems like she's not really ready to be on the show, maybe, which again, that's okay. It seems like a good choice. If they don't know where this relationship is going, she doesn't want her whole future linked to her appearance on this show. So to me, it makes sense. It just seems like they're giving us clues that there's some issues there in the relationship, but that's all we get out of Micah from this episode. Let's jump over to Ethan and Olivia. The show takes us to the apartment they had together in Minnesota. At this point, Olivia is no longer living there, and Ethan says he hasn't seen her in a few months. She's moved to California, so they've been separated for a while. We see Ethan playing the guitar and singing. That's pretty common on this show. We know music's really important to all the kids in the Plath family. But he talks about how he hasn't seen her and how he's been alone. At this point, he is working 2 jobs and working out and spending time with his grandparents just so he can fill up his time, and he's not sitting in this apartment by himself. But the lease is finally going to be up at the end of the month. So Olivia is going to be coming to the apartment to get what's left of her things. So this is going to be really hard because he hasn't seen her in a few months. So, there's going to be a lot of emotions stirred back up. Of course, in classic TLC fashion, they managed to be there filming at the exact moment when Olivia shows up. And of course, TLC had to know that she was going there because they were filming her. But Ethan says he didn't actually know when she was getting there. And he ends up saying that to her, like, you didn't tell me when you were coming. So this is something that if he really didn't know, this is something they kept from him because that the film crew knew. So Ethan's surprised at her timing. And of course, it seems very uncomfortable between the two of them and very emotional, which is to be expected given everything that's happening between the two of them. Olivia is not just there to get her things, but she's also there to sort of bring an end to it all. She wants there to be closure, and she wants them to actually start going through with the divorce, the legalities of it. I think Olivia is waiting for that to really be able to move on, but Ethan is struggling. He's still got a lot of feelings about the divorce itself, and he seems to be holding out a little bit of hope that it will work. And when they're talking, Ethan brings up again that he felt like he had to choose between Olivia and his siblings.
Between me or your family, like you were going to pick your family.
That's because you made me choose.
When I was watching this, it just felt like they were at two opposite ends of this experience. Like Olivia seems like she's sad it's happening, but she's also okay with it. She knows it needs to happen, where it feels like Ethan is still a bit in denial. Like he's holding out that hope that it's going to work. I know a lot of people have strong opinions about Olivia and about Ethan and about the Plaths. You guys can let me know what you think of all this down in the comments. There is one more thing I want to know you guys' opinions about. There is this moment in this conversation where Olivia asked a question. I'm like, was this sincere or was this a dig? I'm going to go ahead and put the clip in here. It's really short, but I want to know if you guys, was it like a sincere question, or do you guys think she was, I don't know. I didn't know how I felt about this. Here's the clip.
So you're happy now with your family?
If Ethan hadn't slammed his hands down on the back of the stool, I would have thought it was a sincere question. But after he did that, I was sort of left wondering, was that sincere? Like, was she really asking, like, how's it going with your family? Are you happy? Or was she trying to point out by asking that question, like, look, it didn't work out. You're still not talking to your family. Like, let me know in the comments. I don't have a clue. Like, I'm probably reading too much into it, but it just, his response and that question, I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought. Ultimately, nothing productive comes of the conversation they're having, and Olivia decides to leave and tells him that she's going to come back later and they need to figure out how to handle things, like how to handle the divorce. And I think that was a good decision, because after not seeing each other for a few months, I think that in itself brought out a lot of emotion. So I think some time to kind of let that cool down and then come back together, that was probably a really good idea. Next, let's talk about Kim. She has also had some changes in her life. We find out that, she's still going through this divorce with Barry, and because of this, finances are really tight. So she's trying to save money, and she made the decision not to move in with Ken. When the last season ended, that was sort of something she was thinking about. Ken said, you can move in with me to save money, but we find out in this episode she decided not to do that. She felt it was important to have a place of her own, and she wanted to be independent, so she got her own place.
I need to just focus on me and the girls, so I bought a houseboat.
This was a surprising choice to me. However, Kim says she grew up in Florida on a boat. Again, this wouldn't have been my first choice if I was her. She still has kids that need a place to stay. I feel like they should feel as if they have a room to go into. Even if they share it together, I think there should be a bit of privacy for them. Kim says this is something that's short term, right? That finances are tight because of the divorce. After the divorce is final, she'll have more money. So hopefully she can get her own place, right? That has rooms for the kids. It just doesn't seem very comfortable to me. The kitchen's really small. There's a bathroom there, but they prefer to use the one at the marina. I mean, is this the end of the world? No, it's not. If it's a short-term solution, it's fine. But I don't know. It's just not what I would want to do. I would definitely be looking for something else because it doesn't look that comfortable for the girls. But you guys can let me know if you have experience with living on a boat as a kid or with kids. You guys can let me know down in the comments. And if you don't, just let me know how you feel about it, 'cause I was surprised by this choice. However, what Kim does mention is that she is happier in a small boat. She's happier in this small boat than she was being in a big house with Barry. And I have to tell you something. I have a theory about Kim. I think she was burnt out. I think she was this fundamentalist wife trying to do everything, homeschooling the kids, at home all the time, trying to live up to what their faith told them they had to be like. And I think she got burnt out. I sort of wonder if they had sent those kids to school and she had gotten a job and taken up some hobbies and found some interest with Barry, if their marriage would have worked. You know, she says she likes the small boat more than the big house. And she doesn't say Barry. She says something like, more than being in a big house with you know who. Like, she doesn't say his name. But my thing is, was it really Barry, or was it the life they had created? And could they have worked on it and changed and made their marriage work? Because I sort of think that's what happened. But again, you guys can let me know what you think down in the comments. Now that we've talked about Kim, of course, we have to talk about Barry, and the show actually takes us over to Barry and Mariah. We find out that Barry has been working out a lot and he started running, and Mariah is his new running partner. She has moved back home to Cairo from Tampa, but she's not just living in the same town as her dad. She is actually living in the house, in the Plath house, the one she grew up with. So she's back there with the little girls, Isaac and Lydia. But she says Isaac and Lydia are hardly ever there because they're very busy. We find out that Lydia is traveling a lot, so it seems like she's doing well. Mariah shares that she had been in a relationship while she was in Tampa, and then she found out some things about this person that she didn't know. And so she made the decision to go home.
It's easy to fall into poor me mentality, but it's not poor me. It's learn and do better.
Mariah doesn't go into details about what happened, but clearly whatever occurred, it made her want to leave Tampa and go back home. You know, her and Barry are sitting outside talking, and he encourages her to stay there until she's ready to move on to whatever's next in her life. And I think Barry does a great job when he's talking to his kids. He seems to be understanding and communicates well, and he listens. However, I don't think this is how he always was. You know, the Kim and Barry we're seeing now are not the Kim and Barry they were 6-7 years ago. And it's really a shame because I think they were far more judgmental back then, far more strict, and they unfortunately, you know, weren't the parents they could have been to these kids. But it's good that they've changed. I hope they keep working on their relationships with their kids. And it looks like this is good for Mariah because she seems to enjoy spending time with her dad. We're going to go ahead and start talking about episode 2 now, but go down in the comments and let me know what you thought of episode 1. Episode 2 picks up right where it left off with Ethan and Olivia. Ethan seems to really be holding out that hope that they're going to avoid divorce, where Olivia is just ready to move on and she's kind of accepted it. So she says she's been single a long time and this divorce just needs to happen.
I feel like Ethan's indecision confirms my decision.
Olivia goes further talking about this. She says that during their relationship, she would feel loved and then unloved and loved again. There was always an inconsistency there. And seeing him do this during the divorce, or as they're working through their separation and divorce, makes her realize that this relationship isn't working for her. But ultimately, Ethan says he can't do it. He can't sign the divorce papers this time. He's not ready. And so Olivia leaves with her things. And there's no progress made in this area. But after this, things get a little bit happier for Olivia. We see her head to Arizona to spend some time with her sister, Lydia Grace. During this part of the show, we find out that Olivia had moved from Minnesota to LA, and she loves it out there. Her sister, Lydia Grace, is in Arizona, so they're not too far apart, and they're getting to spend more time together. Both of them are newly single, and they're living on their own after years of living with their partners. So they're kind of going through the same things. While Olivia is out there, we see them talking about dating and being single. And I just have to tell you, I really like that they have each other. Even though I think Olivia is very independent, I think it's going to go a lot better if she has someone from her family there to support her as she's working through this divorce. And I enjoy watching them together on the show. So there's that. During this episode, we see Lydia and Olivia go and have a tarot reading done. Of course, this is something they would have never done growing up, and they were told this was completely unacceptable and not okay according to the rules of their faith. So this is sort of a big deal for them. During the reading, Olivia is told that she will only be married once, like to one person, and she will have 2 children. And Olivia shares that she is already getting a divorce, and the woman doing the reading tells Olivia that she will have more relationships, but she's going to end up reconnecting with this person. So she's going to remarry Ethan, is what she's being told. And Olivia ends up sharing that this is not something she wants to hear. Like, she does not want to go back to Ethan. So she's hoping this reading is wrong. And that's all we get from Olivia and Lydia in this episode. Let's go ahead and talk about Mariah. We find out that she's living there in Cairo with Barry and her siblings, but she is actually working in Tallahassee as a server and a bartender. It's a 45-minute drive to the restaurant from her house, but she says that it's worth it.
I've learned that when you have money, you have more freedom. When you have no money, you have no freedom.
We find out that Mariah wants to save money so that she can record more music. And again, this is something we've seen with this family since the show started. They are wanting to jumpstart music careers. So that is still her goal. And also during episode 1, I really didn't mention this, but Barry and Mariah had talked about finances. And the cost of living where she was before was very expensive. So money right now is a pretty big thing in Mariah's life. It's motivating her to work hard so that she can hopefully get out of Barry's house eventually and record more music. We end up seeing Mariah going back home to the Plath house and spending time with Lydia, Isaac, Micah, and Barry. They're all together having a game night, and then they get a special guest, and that is Ethan. He stops by for a visit, so that's a pretty big deal. They all stop playing a game and head to the living room to talk. Ethan shares that his marriage to Olivia is actually ending. And when he says that they were divorcing, I was really happy they all didn't start applauding, because let's get real, we know how some of them feel about Olivia. But, I mean, pushing their feelings aside, they realized how serious this was for Ethan, and they were all very kind to him. Barry ends up encouraging Ethan to really take his time with the divorce and understand what he needs and to not rush through this. Eventually, the siblings leave the room, and it's just Barry and Ethan alone talking. Barry just gives Ethan some advice about needing to take the time to work through things and asking if he has moments where he feels depressed and how that's just where he's going to be temporarily. It's just, I think, a good conversation for them to have. They're both going through something similar, but at the same time, it's not getting too personal. There's no bashing anyone. There's no actually bringing up Olivia and Kim. So I thought it was actually a good handling of the conversation itself. Barry does end up asking Ethan if he is going to go and see the little girls. They're with Kim. And Ethan says he doesn't have any plans at that time to go do it because he thought they would be there at the house. And you can tell there's some issues there with whether or not Ethan wants to go and see them when they're with Kim. But that is where it ends for them in this episode. And finally, let's talk about Kim herself. We get to see Ken and Kim spending time together. They're riding four-wheelers. And Kim mentions that they have been seeing each other for a year and a half now. And the kids, weren't sure about the whole thing when she started seeing him, but they've actually warmed up to him quite a bit. Now, as much as I don't always agree with Kim's choices, I do think she's made a good decision here with her relationship with Ken. She's taking it slow. She didn't jump on that option and move in with him. She would have had more money if she lived with him, but she declined that. She is trying to be independent. So I think Kim is actually making some pretty good choices. I'm not so sure about the living on the houseboat, but again, that's whatever. She can make that work. I'm sure she knows what her and her family like and how they want to live. But I think she's making a good decision here regarding her relationship with Ken. So she talks about how the kids have warmed up to him, but Barry isn't even giving him a chance. Like, Ken tries to be friendly and approachable when he does see Barry, but Barry is like not having any of it. Barry just avoids him. To me, that's not a big deal. Like, when you get divorced, your ex isn't necessarily going to want to go and meet your new partner right away. Things take time. As long as he's not acting angry or yelling or saying things, if it's just Barry avoiding him, I don't think that's that big of a deal. Kim does say she thinks it's all going to be a lot easier when Barry finally dates, which is probably true. I think when Barry starts dating and he's, at a better place and the divorce is really fully final, I think it will be a lot different. But I think it's good that Ken wants to be friendly with Barry. I mean, relationships don't always start out that way when there's divorces and exes involved. Things can get really nasty, so I think it's actually not going too bad. Unless there's just a lot of stuff we're not seeing. I do have to admit, I'm wondering what's making the divorce take so long, but again, I don't think they're going to mention that on the show, so we may never know. But that is it. That is a recap of these 2 episodes. Let me know down in the comments what you think of everything going on. If you haven't already, I hope you'll click like and subscribe. I appreciate all the support this little channel gets. Reading the comments is one of my favorite parts of this, so you can always leave comments, but please be nice. We don't have to be mean in the comment section. So that is it. I hope you'll come back.